Welcome to another edition of Boxing Info. I'm your host, the Islander. Second try at trying to do this video. Listen, I meant to do a preview video last week of the Flying Molina's fights against Anthony Joshua and against Terence Crawford. But as somebody asked me on one of my videos or asked me on my channel, I was, telling them that they're both mismatches, and I really didn't feel the need to upload a video just to describe that they were going to be mismatches. With that said, though, what I do want to do is just a quick review. Terence Crawford, as I told you in the last video, I think he is possibly one of the best, if not top 2 or 3 pound-for-pound boxers in the world. The most impressive thing about him, to me, is that he has already reached the pinnacle of getting into fights that are capable of being sold on pay-per-view, like his fight with Postal. With this said, I am always skeptical of boxers when they get to this point because they go into self-preservation mode, a la Floyd Mayweather Jr. And with that said, Terence Crawford could have easily coasted to a 12-round shutout decision like Pernell Whitaker used to do, but instead tattooed Molina for 8 rounds, did catch a couple of shots himself, but you know what? I forgive that because he's in the pocket trying to land punches to get the other guy out of there. And as long as he keeps doing his job, which this is the job, Molina didn't belong in the same ring with him. No disrespect to Molina. Crawford's one of the top, in my opinion, 3 pound-for-pound fighters in the world. You would think he'd get him out of the ring, get him out of there by stoppage, and he did. And one thing I will say this about Molina in this fight is every time we see a guy, a talent disparity like this, every time we see that, we always say, why doesn't the guy with less talent try this or try that or throw caution in the wind or throw the kitchen sink at him? Finally, we saw it happen. And nobody can question Molina's effort. And I give him, basically 2 hats off for putting forth, let's be clear. You came in overweight. You didn't take your training seriously, or as seriously as you should have at this chance of a lifetime. But at least the effort inside the ring far out exceeded the effort in training, in my opinion. But he got what he was going to get in the end, and that was a stoppage in the 8th round. Kudos to both fighters, and kudos to Crawford for doing what he was supposed to do. Keep doing what you're supposed to do, and the money's going to come pouring in. All right, that's all I'm going to say about that fight. Anthony Joshua versus the other Flying Molina. No relation. Mismatch from the outset, and I want to spend a little bit of time speaking about Anthony Joshua because I know the Brits are very high on him, and he has Olympic pedigree and a vast amateur background, and I've seen him fight a few times. The jury's still out on him. He hasn't fought anybody of the caliber that can hurt him. Excuse me. Now his next fight is going to be in the spring against Vladimir Klitchko, who I'm just going to... I don't talk about the heavyweights that much because of a mess that's been made by the fallout between Vladimir Klitschko and Tyson Fury. They basically left the division in shambles. It was almost totally unified. Basically, Vladimir Klitschko had every piece put together with the exception of the title that Burnaby Stavern had that now Deontay Wilder has. Okay, one fight was away from total unification, like the days of Mike Tyson and like the days of Muhammad Ali. That's all we were needed. Instead, the titles have all splintered again, which has left the landscape in a mess. And I was reading an article that one of the British guys wrote yesterday that they liken the heavyweight division to like the United States in the 1800s with the gold rush, where everybody's going to thinks they could strike it rich. Well, obviously, Molina's out of the running now. The guy in New Zealand out of the running now, and I can't keep up with all these guys. But the 2 that stick out in my mind from now going forward are Anthony Joshua and our man from Alabama. Hold on a second. Deontay Wilder. I want to talk about this for a second because Anthony Joshua reminds me of a raw, young, Lennox Lewis. And this ties in to his next fight with Vladimir Klitchko, because I think one thing you need to take notice of, and I've only been cognizant of this probably for the last 25 years, not the whole time I've been watching boxing, but only since about 1988 onward, I've been cognizant of this. And that is that you really need to look at the heavyweights and how they react when they are faced with different size opponents, different ability opponents. Mike Tyson would bowl over everybody if given a chance, okay? Evander Holyfield would like to get on top of smaller fighters and basically soften them up from a distance and get them out of there. But Lennox Lewis was different. Lennox Lewis, being 6'5", 6'6", dating back to his days in the Olympics in Seoul, South Korea, whenever he faced a guy he saw eye to eye or who was bigger than him, he had one mode: get that sucker out of there as fast as possible. Whack him out quick. These are dangerous people. Get them out of my way. He did that to Riddick Bowe in the Olympics. He did that to Razor Ruddock on Halloween 1992. He did that to Andrew Galata. He tried to do it to Henry Akinwande, who wanted to basically wrestle more than he wanted to fight him. He did that to Franz Botha. He did that to Michael Grant. Any guy that he was as big, David Tua and Mike Tyson, he took his time with them. He basically kept his distance from them. He knew they were dangerous, but they couldn't hurt him from distance. These other guys could hurt him from distance. Oliver McCall got to him before Lennox Lewis could get to Oliver McCall. But you see what I'm saying? Whenever he was faced with a guy who was his size or bigger, he wanted to whack them out as fast as possible. Okay, let's contrast that with the recent dominant heavyweight, Vladimir Klitchko. Whenever he's in the ring with somebody who he sees eye to eye with, what does he do? He becomes reclusive. He backs off. He tries to hide behind his jab. He tries to basically, play chess with the other guy is what he's doing. And the thing, he's fought fights where he's gone 12 rounds or into the 10th, 11th, 12th rounds before scoring a stoppage with guys that Lennox Lewis would have blown out inside 4 rounds, like Tony Thompson and just to name a few. He lost to Layman Brewster the first time around, more because he was not pacing himself, and he basically had ran out of steam and was exhausted by the end of 4 rounds. Let me be clear about this. Vladimir Klitschko and Lennox Lewis approached big guys differently. Anthony Joshua is a big guy who sees eye to eye with Vladimir Klitschko. If you don't believe me, look at Vladimir Klitschko against Tyson Fury. I thought before that fight, even though I didn't do a video, that Vladimir Klitschko was going to knock him into next week. Vladimir Klitschko does not want to engage with big, strong heavyweights. He wants to fight them at distance, make them walk into a punch. If a knockout comes, it comes. If not, he'll beat them over on points. That's his psyche. Lennox Lewis would have jumped all over Tyson Fury and may have got himself knocked out, but it would have been knockout or be knocked out. And the point I'm trying to make is that if you asked me a year ago who was going to win between Vladimir Klitschko and Anthony Joshua, I would have told you that Vladimir Klitschko was going to knock him into next month. Not going to happen. It's a pick'em fight. The only thing in my opinion, Vladimir Klitschko's got going for him in this fight is vast experience, vast championship experience. What does Joshua have going for him? Youth and almost a naivete, a youthful naivete of not knowing what's dangerous and what's not. He gives you the impression of being a polished fighter, tight, nice and neat, but really he's really no different than Lennox Lewis was prior to Emmanuel Stewart smoothing him out and playing master craftsman. In any event, I look forward to that fight because I really do think that it's going to be interesting, and I think all the risk is on on Vladimir Klitchko because I don't think Anthony Joshua, win, lose, or draw, is going to really suffer in that fight. Either way, uh, as far as I was saying about the heavyweight division, with the two that I expect to rise to the top are obviously Wilder and Joshua, and sometime in the future look for a fight between them. Wilder, I think, might be a little bit ahead of him at this point, but after beating Stavern, he's basically fought a lot of nondescript guys, and I can't go much off of even stopping um, the guys he's been beating. How much he's really progressed. He obviously has physical advantages, great physical advantages. He seems like he could take a shot, and I don't know what happens when Joshua's chin is tested, if it even gets tested, because like I said, Klitschko looked like a shell of himself against Fury, and I don't know whether that's more nerves and him being apprehensive and like he does against guys that his size are bigger or not, but that's something to look forward to because to me Joshua is far more dynamic, and I think it's a pick'em fight that Joshua could easily win. Coming up, not this weekend, but I think it's next weekend. Let me double check this for you. Not the 16th. I guess it is this coming weekend, the 17th, in Inglewood, California, which used to be the Inglewood Forum. I guess it's the Great Western Forum. I'm assuming that's where this fight's being held on HBO. Between Bernard Hopkins, it's supposed to be his swan song. Do you remember when Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. was going along on the swan song tour? He's going. It's like goodbye Phoenix, goodbye Mexico, goodbye. That's what Bob Arum used to say. When's the goodbye tour going to end? It's going to be goodbye California, goodbye Texas, making his goodbye tour. But this is supposed to be it for Bernard Hopkins, who's past the age of 50, against Joe Smith. In theory, a dangerous fighter, but let's look at it this way. Unless Hopkins' reflexes are totally shot, I don't see how he's he's not going to get knocked out by this guy. He's not going to get bludgeoned by this guy. I mean, he's skillful enough at this advanced age and stage of his career to prevent Sergey Kovalev from knocking him out. Now, Sergey Kovalev beat him pillar to post, don't get me wrong, but he still had the wherewithal to be able to survive for 12 rounds. So expect Hopkins to slide by in this one, maybe have an anxious moment or two, but he's going to probably give young Joe Smith a lesson in... he's a throwback, Bernard Hopkins, to the guys like Sammy Angot and Fritzy Zivic and those guys who can bend the rules a little bit but were really effective. All right, questions. Our friend Arnold Wayne has asked a couple of questions about some dream fights, and let me tell you what he asked. Fantasy matchup between Canelo Alvarez and Julian Jackson at 154. I really don't know. Let's put it this way: the first one that lands flush wins the fight, because I don't think Canelo's ever been hit like Jackson could hit him, and Jackson's chin was also questionable. And then not at 154 though. Now that I think about it, the only time he lost by stoppage was against Mike McCallum, and he was actually, that was less than 2 rounds, but he had McCallum really hurting that in the first round of that fight down in Miami, and that's a tough one. It's a toss. I think it's a toss-up. I don't know who would win that fight. The first guy to hurt the other guy would probably win, in my opinion. And you think about Terry Norris had Julian Jackson beat for 2 rounds until he got airmailed to mom with a right hand. He got caught with his back to the ropes. Excuse me again. Arnold Wayne also posed a dream fight, and this is a good one. Antonio Cervantes, in his prime, I'm assuming, against Alexis Arguello, a little bit past his prime, at 140. I'm going to assume this is a 15-round fight. I'm going to assume it's fought in neutral territory. It's not in Cartagena or Barranquilla or Bogota, Colombia. It's going to be someplace like Atlantic City or Miami or Las Vegas or something like that. Let's assume we've got a even playing field here. Okay. With that said, I think if we put the Alexis Arguello, who got into the ring with Aaron Pryor in the Orange Bowl on November 13th, 1982, in with Cervantes, who had either just the one that had just regained the title after losing it to Wilfred Benitez, or the one right before he lost to Wilfred Benitez, somewhere in there. I think that Arguello would either win a close unanimous decision or score a late round stoppage. 13th, 14th, possibly 15th round. I think that Cervantes was so slick and so smooth that he would have been able to have blunted Arguello's some of Arguello's power. The problem was that Arguello could hurt you with a multitude of different punches, and that would basically, again, extend the fight per se. And he also had it was very fairly tall, had fairly long reach, Cervantes. So I'm still going to go with Arguello by a very tight decision or a late round stoppage where he might have been behind on points. That's going to do it for this show. I will be hopefully back one more time this year before we get into next year. If I don't see you folks, we're in a new era in this country, in the United States of America. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa. No more political correctness. And that's going to do it for this year. Thanks, everybody.